Hello, everyone. It's great to see you at our Research at Lassonde event. Thank you for tuning in at 11 a.m., bright and early for most people during a weekend in the summer. Today we have a few students and professor on the panel, and maybe we can go through the students first, and then we'll have our great professor in UPD introduce themselves. Would you like to start?
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Janelle. My pronouns are she and her. And I have completed many research positions. I have done a LURA position, a USRA position, and a RAE position.
Hi, folks. My name is Alan. You can use he, him pronouns. I am going to my last year of software engineering, and I did a research assistant contract with the best lab here, studying engineering design with Bergeron Entrepreneurs in Science and Technology for a couple terms. And that's a bit about me.
Okay, hello everyone. My name's Ferg. My pronouns are he and him, and I'm going to my third year software engineering at Lassonde. I have completed the RAE position at York, right now, still going. Hopefully I'll continue until April. And yeah, that's everything.
Great, and last, I guess we have our professor who's joining us today.
Hello, yeah, I'm Sebastian Magierovski.
Oh. You're good, you can speak.
Okay. I'm Sebastian Magierovski. I'm an associate professor in electrical engineering and computer science department, and also the undergraduate program director for engineering for that department, ECS.
Great, thank you so much for introducing yourself. So maybe Janelle, do you want to MC right now?
Yes, sounds great. Okay, so first we'll start with Farouk. Do you want to talk about like your position on your RAE positions that you've done previously?
Okay, so I worked at the Virtual Reality and Perception Lab for Lassonde with Professor Robert Allison. And so currently, right now, we're working on trust management between humans and autonomous systems. So basically how humans relate with, you can think of like your Tesla, autopilot planes, and random things like that, and how to manage the trust between the person and the system so you can optimize the functions that they are going to carry out, operations that they're going to carry out in different cases. I've been going over it for a year now. Recently started that project. Oh, thank you. Recently started that project in the summer, and it's been really cool. It's introduced me to lots of things. I didn't used to program that much, so I learned it for like 2 years. That's very disappointing myself. Even though then I started using like different programming languages to work on the projects, went through different papers, and expanded my knowledge about general engineering.
Awesome. Do you want me to answer?
Yeah.
So I just finished my research contract this past April. So I was working from September 2020, maybe even earlier, until April 2021. So I worked in the BEST lab, and it was kind of research on a more meta-analysis of engineering design and how engineers and people in the field of STEM can work to solve problems in an efficient framework. And so we took a problem-based approach to how we would solve the problem, how we can identify root causes, understand the user, and then analyze all the different possibilities as to how a problem can be solved. We looked at different methods for choosing best solutions for given problems, and then we took that even further. We said, what are the problems with our solution? How can we overcome those, especially for specific users that we're designing our problem for? Then we looked at how we would implement that solution and a framework for how to actually bring it to a market or to a group of people who would be using it. And finally, we looked at how it can be presented and put all together the different stages of the design project work that anyone can be doing for a variety of engineering disciplines. And so that's what I did, and it was, under a contract assistant position, which means it was outside of the research at York RAE or the Lassonde undergraduate research, I don't know. But so it's not Ray or Lura, but it's still research, and there are a variety of contract research positions that you can get outside of the programs for undergrad students.
Before I even start talking about my research experience, I do want to go over the different types of research at Lassonde and how you can get involved in it. So for one, there are 3 research, or you can do it like what Alan did. There's a Ray position. There's also the Lura. So Lura, USRA are kind of like under Lassonde, and you can apply for it in the summer term, even in the fall of the time, and they are a
Research.
Yeah. It is, I'm forgetting the word, but it's like a grant where your professor that you find that you want to do research with, you get funding from Lassonde and or ANSWER, and USRA stands for Undergraduate Student Research
Award.
And then Lura is Lassonde Undergraduate Research Award. And these both, you can find a professor either with a professor you worked with at Lassonde or a professor you had, or you can find a professor by going to their office hours, or even on Lassonde's website. They have a list of professors that are looking for research assistants throughout the summer term, and you can apply through there as well. Research is a great experience if you want to get involved with it, because you get to work side by side with your professor and or their colleagues. And for example, our professor today probably has had many research assistants throughout the years at Lassonde, and maybe you want to speak a little bit on that?
Yeah, so maybe you can speak about the students who did research, what programs, and then also talk about maybe recent projects that you've been working on. I know you're busy as an UPD, but I'm sure you still do research on the side.
Yeah, we just, a recent project that we had, a Lura project, involved a student that's in grad school now, but was going into 4th year last summer. And that involved helping design a chip, a computer chip that we submitted for fabrication. I think that was a good experience. The student did a really good job. In that particular case, we were actually in contact for quite a long time. And this might be a good strategy for any students out there listening. So for example, I think I met the student maybe first 2 years ago. I was actually, I think, even longer than that. And they just expressed an interest in a particular field of study. So by then, I think they'd finished their 2nd year, or maybe they were kind of partway into 3rd year and had already had some experience in industry, I think, as part of our co-op program. And, they kind of knew, that student knew what area they were interested in. We had a discussion, and then I gave them some kind of prep work on the side, because some of the areas that profs are involved in can use some intricate tools. So in this particular case, I just, informally, there was no real deadlines or anything of that sort. On their own time, the student could follow through and learn some of the tools and try little assignments to get used to them. In any case, when they started again under a Lura project in last spring, it was pretty successful because they could jump in and do quite substantial work almost right from the beginning. So that was a really efficient path, I think, for their research experience. And and they worked great, and they worked with grad students, which would be ideal. So not only interact with the prof, but you can work within a team, and then absorb other important skills besides just the core technical. And that's working well with other people.
For sure.
Yeah, maybe as a follow-up and something you touched on, do you think students need to have a lot of experience to get into research, or are you able to learn a lot of the skills in your first research term? And yes, I think I think that's a concern a lot of students have if they haven't worked before or done research at all.
Yeah, I think it's pretty even after 1st year. You could there's always I would say for most projects, there's aspects that could be directed to students, even with a first year experience. I mean, in theory, even high school. The students that I've seen that have come to me from out of high school and shown the stuff they did, it's kind of thought, wow, okay, you can jump in and start designing computers right away. That's very rare, but even basic exposure to programming, that's such a fundamental tool, and certainly in electrical and computer engineering and computer science, that just some familiarity with coding is extremely helpful. But it doesn't have to be intricate. I mean, it could be a paced project. So your supervisor should be aware of your background and create something that they think is doable, and and pace it with the kind of your skills in mind. So I guess long story, to summarize, yeah, I think it should be pretty possible, quite possible. For instance, I think one of the students I think we're working with now is from biology, and on stuff related, but there's biological aspects to that work that just requires squirting and sucking things up, and they're pretty good at that, and doing analyses as well.
Awesome, that's good to hear. And I also know we have a lot of people in chat, so if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to post them, and we'll make sure to ask those questions live.
Yes, so I forgot to introduce what discipline I'm in. I'm in civil engineering, and I mentioned that I've done 3 research terms. So the first one, I started my first research term in my second year at Lassonde, and that was under specialized with a professor named John Gales. I know specifically with regards to fire engineering at Lassonde and the safety and everything with regards to that. And then that kind of led to my second research term the summer after. So when I was in 3rd year, I ended up making a network connection with a professor in Waterloo. So I got a scholarship for Waterloo for the USRA, and I worked with them over the summer, and that's specified under mechanical engineering. And then this past summer, so my 4th year, I ended up doing another research position with a transportation professor, Professor Peter Park and Kevin Gingrich, and that's specified in student movement at York University. And I probably will only speak about one of my many research experiences today, and I probably will stick with the last one I did. So this past summer, I worked with Professor Park and Kevin Gingrich, and what I did was I studied the student movements in the GTA of Ontario, and I studied the movement of York University students specifically, and how they move, like what kind of transportation they use, their mode choice. So if they use subway, car, stuff like that, before the subway expansion at York University, which happened in 2017, and then after the subway expansion in 2019. So I analyzed the difference and how that impacted student movements at York University. And I noticed that there is a question in the chat about, is there a GPA requirement to get into USA?
So for Laura, there used to be, I think, a more specific requirement, which was a 7. But I think now you only need it's based 60% on GPA, 30% on your research potential, and then 10% on your communication, which is essentially your application. So I'm not sure if that GPA requirement still exists.
There is a GPA requirement of a 6%. It is competitive sometimes, depending on what discipline you are in. There's a limited amount of scholarships that Lassonde can give to students to fund them for the research, so it is a little bit competitive. But if you apply, your professor sometimes will help you out with your application, and
and as well, I think for USRA, it's an 8 of 9.
Yes, the USRA is a little bit more competitive because it is funded by NSERC, which is, I don't remember.
National Science and something, Research Canada.
Yeah, it's a national corporation, and they fund our research. So that is a little bit more competitive. You do need a higher GPA for that one, but it is possible to get it. Like I said, I did research in my 2nd year. I know a lot of my friends also did research in 2nd year, and they also got USRA scholarships to fund their research, so it is possible. And yeah, I hope that is with uh, so Farouk, do you want to was there any benefits from doing research?
Yes, there were. Both, actually. As I said earlier, I didn't like program that myself, even though I learned it in like high school and stuff. So while doing the research, I got to like apply my skills more often because I know myself. I'm a very good person. I got to apply my skills like more often. I got to see how like to apply it in the real world, for instance, not just in class. And I went through lots of research papers, which opened my eyes to like things people are designing like in actual engineering. So those are one of the benefits. And I also got to interact with the professors and the graduate students, even some undergraduate students that were doing the Lua program in my lab. So that was like yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah. For me personally, like I said, for my first research position, I got to network with a professor at Waterloo, and I ended up working for her for the next summer. So it's definitely a networking opportunity. You can meet a lot of other professors. You can attend also conferences because some professors do give you those opportunities to attend those. Also, you can work on conference papers. So like what Luke just said, he wrote or he collaborated with other people on journal papers and conference papers. So these are papers that are available to the public that has your name on it. So it's like you read about your research or your project that you're working on. So that's also a great way to get your name out there if you want to do that. It also helps with graduate school. For me personally, I am planning on doing my master's next year, or the next coming year. So having this experience on research, it does benefit me because I have an idea of what my master's will be like in the future, and it also provides me ideas of what the projects I want to do in my master's. So that's for me personally.
And maybe to ask you, Sebastian, when you were an undergraduate, did you do research, and maybe what benefits did you find after you graduated from your undergrad that you maybe got from research?
Yeah, I did definitely. I did research after second year and after third year, and then forgot what I did. Maybe I didn't do anything fourth year. I think maybe I was getting ready for grad school. So yeah, that was really helpful. Certainly, for I don't know about the second year one, although that was a lot of fun to work on that project. I worked on it with other undergrads as well. And my work between third and fourth year during that summer was the foundation for the stuff I ended up doing for my fourth year capstone, and in a sense, actually, stuff I'm still doing today after I left it, and now I'm kind of back into some of my undergrad research after X number of decades. So as far as exposure to the tools, the methods, how grad school works. How organizations work a little bit more, school, what happens kind of behind the scenes at school, all of that stuff where I was exposed to and enjoyed it a lot, actually.
Yeah, and so for me personally, I found a lot of benefits from working. I know for a lot of teams, their research they're doing is more open-ended and might not have a final version and a final goal in mind. It's a continuous project that's almost being worked on over many years for a larger challenge. For me personally, I found a benefit because I was able to work under maybe a bigger project, but do something in a specific scope that had an end goal in mind for when I'd finish my term as a research assistant. And I found that it was very beneficial to work with a team to maybe do a part of a bigger project and to take ownership over my own area, and as well to be able to present it at the end and kind of integrate my project into a real application and show it to other people. And luckily, I also had the chance to actually use what I worked with other people in a variety of different conferences and stuff, and I found that really beneficial, just my overall personal development. And I think a lot of people will take out from research not just the technical aspects of it, but the aspects of presenting their research and maybe integrating it into a mission of a larger lab that they might be working in. Yeah. Oh, I ask it. All right. So maybe we'll start with you, Sebastian, because you already went through the grad school. Why did you choose to go into higher education and go into research?
Yeah, I think for some reason, I think I had, I'd heard of a PhD and a master's when I was younger. I just figured that's something I wanted to do as well. I didn't think too deeply about it. I mean, to the extent that I kind of just went through undergrad, and it wasn't until a friend of mine, probably maybe in September or October, said they were applying for grad school that I realized, oh, okay, you have to apply for these things and submit your applications. I don't know how. I blanked on that stuff. And so since I figured that's just the path I wanted to do, maybe I was thinking about why I wanted to do that. And I thought, well, I mean, it just seems like opportunities to learn a bit more deeply. I don't know, maybe job opportunities were a little scarce at that time as well. So industry wasn't so much of on my mind. Also, perhaps because the industry that surrounded me was not so interesting to me. So grad school seemed like the thing to do, and it looked like people were doing interesting discoveries. For instance, one of the things I did do, again, probably inspired by my friends, is I got a student subscription to IEEE journals. So at that time, it was very cheap, probably $5 for the whole year, and we could order a bunch of journals, and I just had all of these technical journals sent to my place over the year before. I got to look at all of these technical documents. Remember, this is before there was a lot of stuff on the internet readily available for people. So I didn't understand the papers, but there was, looking at the pictures, reading the complex titles, it was kind of there was a certain magic to it that I felt grad school would help me understand. And I think that's why I got into grad school and into that field.
And now maybe that you got in that PhD and you've even worked, why have you chosen to maybe stay in academia and research over industry in the private sector?
I was thinking about that too. And I think for me, and I've spent time in industry and I loved it actually. So as part of my PhD, I did a couple 4-month internships. So you could say I've been in industry as an employee for 8 months, which were both great experiences. Actually, after my second one, I didn't want to go back to my PhD because there was a level of seriousness, I thought. And, I saw all of these different industrial methods that I wasn't aware of before then that were made things look very serious. So the reason now, perhaps, that I stay is maybe one, I still feel like I wouldn't want to be bossed around. So I'd rather say what I want to do rather than someone else, although industry does extremely interesting things. And if someone tells you to do an interesting thing, maybe that'd be really great. And I would say probably that's the essence of it. I mean, I guess you could say, the other part is possibly job security, although I haven't probably thought deeply about it, in a sense, if you're a prof, maybe you could argue there's a cushy aspect because you've got tenure. So that could be an element too, but I would say maybe the key one is that you get to choose your path, certainly. But outside of universities, if you're very very persistent and driven, that probably hardly matters. I'm sure you've heard examples of many people that go out there and do their thing and on their terms.
And just another question we're getting from the chat, I'm going to guess this is directed at you. Would you say that it's okay to start a path in research and maybe academia, go into industry, and then, or maybe go from industry into academia? I know there are students who graduate their undergrad, then go in directly to PhD, or just go to a master's after a few years of work experience.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've certainly seen that. I've seen all cases. I've heard that it's difficult, so it might also take a particular mindset As you get older, as other parts of your life start to maybe crystallize a little bit more, making that transition, which seems more extreme, is more difficult. I think it's, in academia, it might be a little bit easier to kind of dip your feet into it because, for example, in my case, even in a student's case, you could always, universities are kind of flexible, so they allow you to take a leave of absence. So you could say, I'm going to pause things and I'm going to try industry a shot. Your supervisor might not be very happy about that. You'd have to negotiate, but it's not out of the question. And then you might realize it's not for you. Whereas the other way, I think when you leave a job, unless you've got something set up with your employer, which is, I think, relatively rare, but not unheard of, it's, making that leap probably would feel more like a one-way jump. It's a bit more of a risk, it might seem, but I've seen many people do it. So hopefully that gives you a sense of some of the maybe complexities that you might encounter if following that path.
Awesome. So we have some more questions. Janelle, do you want to ask them?
Yeah. So this is more with regards to Lassonde and what you love about this building. So what is your favorite aspect of Lassonde and being a part of this community?
That's for me.
We're going to ask everyone, but yeah,
okay.
We'll start with you.
So I should answer first?
Yes.
Okay. It's the students. Yeah, pretty much. And, some great colleagues. In my case, I came here in 2013 when the electrical engineering program was being established, and to a certain extent, perhaps the computer engineering program somewhat reimagined, but it was definitely for the construction of the electrical engineering part of the EECS. So it was. So I was here from the ground floors as far as that particular program goes, and I met some very good colleagues that I'm very happy to work with and know. That was pretty good. The students, the undergrads and grads, they're always fun. Working with young people is enjoyable.
Farouk, do you want to go ahead and tell us what your favorite aspect of Lassonde is?
I would also say the students and the people in general. I found them easy to talk to. Everyone's always willing to help. At least in my case, that's how I'm seeing it. The profs are easy to talk to. You can walk up to them, say hi. Some of them might be looking at your lunch and you just sit down and have talk about courses and research requirements. And the students are also really nice. You see 4th years, 3rd years helping the first year students, as you see as you see throughout the project, helping out if you have any questions, ask. Everyone's always willing to help. So that was always really important. Nice everyone.
Yeah, personally for me, my favorite aspect of Lassonde is, I think, with Canada's newest faculty of engineering computer science, I think there's a lot more energy into maybe breaking the mold of what a lot of traditional schools are, especially being in Toronto and seeing U of T, one of Canada's older engineering schools. I think there's more that's willing to be done to innovate, not just in research, but in the methods of teaching and community building. And although some of our departments, like the ECS department, do predate Lassonde, I still think that there's a lot going for it, and the innovation really has allowed a lot of unique changes into our curriculum, and especially for the early years, the early year education of our undergrad students is really phenomenal. We have a very multidisciplinary aspect to our work, which starts in your first year taking courses with other majors, but even as well in your later years. I'm just going to turn on the lights. Over there. There we go. So in your later years, when you do your engineering capstone, we also now have the option for our C4 or our cross-campus capstone course, which lets you work on your final year capstone with people outside of the Lassonde School of Engineering, which really brings another dimension to the work that you do, really being able to apply it to different people or solve more unique challenges. And I really think it's something super unique that you won't get at any other school. And so definitely that's what I love about it. And, you know, as well, the best lab and, you know, having entrepreneurship incubation, especially for engineering computer science students, is awesome to see. I think we all see how many startups and major companies come out from engineering and CS students. So to have, you know, a passion for nurturing those students is really phenomenal to see. Janelle?
Yeah, definitely one of my favorite things about Lassonde is how close-knit of community we are. Since we are a newer engineering university, we do have smaller classes, and it's easier for us to connect with students, clubs, competitions, professors, graduate students. It's very easy to talk to people, and that's one of the things that I appreciate the most. Like I mentioned, this past summer I worked on a research project, and the graduate student I was working on, it was kind of he has a startup with the Best Lab, and he kind of did it so he can learn more about how to like market his product and everything like that. So I was helping him on that, and just like that, I was able to learn more from connecting with him. I was able to learn more about what a master's is, how to do a startup. Very easy to talk to people at Lassonde because they are willing to share their experiences, and they always give you lessons on how to navigate through university as well. Also, back to my first ever research I've ever done in my second year. I got that just from having a class with a professor and me talking to him after class. I visited his office hours, and from that we built a connection, and I was able to. He hired me for the summer to work with him. So, just how small this community is, it is easy. It's very easy to network with everyone and generate opportunities with other professors, graduate students, and PhD students as well.
Awesome. So maybe we'll start with the next question for Rook. So what do you want to do in the future? You know, I think you're the youngest one here out of all of us in terms of our career. So maybe what do you want to do now that you did research and you have a lot of paths to choose from?
I don't know. If I'm being honest, I didn't know what I like from most of the experience. So I know that I like research, the type of research I've been doing before. And from what I did in the research, the technical aspect, the programming, I also know that I like that part. So I have two things that I like, and they could both go to industry and they could both go to like actual academia. Right? So I know that, but I don't really know what I want to do. And as Alan said, I think I still have like 5 more years.
Or more, honestly.
Or more.
Yeah. to like figure that out. So and I from what I've read from a bunch of people, that's also fine. So I'm taking my time with that one. So I know I enjoy the research aspect, and I know I enjoy like designing simulations, designing like some kind of game design to a point, but not really game design, stuff like that. So maybe I'll find my answers soon enough, but for now.
Well, at least you know what you like and don't like. It's the first step to figuring out what you want to do. So maybe we'll ask you, Sebastian, about what do you want to do in your future, maybe future research projects, maybe future things in your time at Lassonde, or even, you know, outside of, you know, what you're doing right now and maybe in your career.
Right now, I would say the focus is more just on building stuff. So, you know, it's research related. You know, there's a project we're working on in general that I would like to kind of see complete, or you know, to work as an entire system. I think that's kind of far away, but there's aspects of it that I guess I would like to see packaged and maybe on people's desks in the years to come that are, you know, actually useful. And so you feel like you created something that's a thing on its own. You know, maybe not necessarily an aspect or a commentary or, you know, a tweak, but a contained, useful thing for someone to use. And that's, you know, so within the research sphere.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And maybe in terms of your career and what you want to do at Lassonde or even other schools, do you have any idea of what you want in your future? You're still a young lad yourself.
Well, probably nothing really profound, but I hope this doesn't sound too crass, but it would be it might be a kind of a nice, perhaps confirmation that you've made something that people like if they pay you money for it. So it'd be kind of interesting if this thing that you built is so useful that there's actually money created out of it. Like I said, it probably doesn't sound too mind-blowing. I certainly would have, if I heard myself say this, I think 10 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, I'd be shocked, I think. But yeah, I think that's the state I'm in. Build a box, be able to get to a point where someone would be willing to buy it.
New types of semiconductors, I'm sure.
In that sphere, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Janelle, what do you want to do in the future?
That's honestly a really good question because I'm entering my 5th year and final year at Lassonde, and I still don't exactly know what I want to do for the future. But like Farouk said, I do know what I like, and I think that is what's most important. With that in mind, I know what I want. I have an idea of what I want to do in my master's. But in terms of like a direct pathway, I think it's good to understand that not everyone knows, or not everyone has a direct path. Everything is fluid and everything can change. So just keep that in mind when you are doing your undergrad, when you are doing your master's. Things can go like sideways, and you might find something that you do like, and you go to that. For myself, I entered university not knowing what stream of civil engineering I wanted to go to. It was either structural or environmental, and then I ended up in my 4th year figuring out what stream I still want. It ended up going to environmental, structural, or transportation from the past research experience I did, because I learned that it's something that I do enjoy, and it's always good to keep in mind that it's okay that if you don't know exactly what you want to do, as long as you know what you like, you can go with that. And I hope that answers that question.
And so maybe a follow-up to that is how do you find research that might interest you, and what can you do to get involved? And I think this is something we'll probably reiterate a few times during today.
Mm-hmm. So, like I mentioned, my first research experience, it was from a professor that I had, and I learned about what he was doing, and he specialized in fire engineering, and I thought fire was really cool, and I love the aspect. I didn't even know that was part of structural, to be honest. And when I heard of it, I was like, oh, that's really cool. So I asked him, and then I ended up doing a whole summer, the summer of, I don't even know, summer of 2019 maybe, or 2018, I can't remember. And then I ended up doing research with him also during the fall and winter under the ray position. And I did a whole entire project with regards to timber and seeing how it reacts to fire, and how if it's a building with fire in a building, how the structural of the building properties last. And with that, I learned that, oh, that was really cool, and I was really fascinated by all of that. So I kind of developed on that, but also I allowed myself to experience other experiences. So I did go to Waterloo, or I did research with another professor in Waterloo, just to keep my options open in terms of what I would like, because sometimes it is difficult to figure out exactly what you want to do and what you want to do for the rest of your life. So just make sure to have an open mindset with regards to trying new things, because you never know what you might like. But it does sometimes originate from your classes, or maybe joining clubs possibly. Like if you joined a club and you're like, oh, I really like what this club is doing with regards to maybe hacking, or for example, there's a club at York University or Lassonde called Engineers Without Borders, and we focus on the sustainability goals. You might find your interest revolving around that, and you might want to evolve your pathway, your future pathway with regards to that. So I think it's just with regards to keeping an open mind and trying new things at Lassonde, because Lassonde and York University has many opportunities for students, such as clubs, competitions, hackathons, everything like that. So just try it out and see what you like.
Awesome. And maybe back to you, Sebastian, how can you recommend maybe students find an area of research that's interesting? And maybe what do you suggest as a professor who's been around the block on how people can get involved and secure these different positions?
Sorry, in securities?
So how can students find research that's interesting to them, and how can they get involved in research that they might, even if they do or don't want to do?
Right. So this is for the student that doesn't know. There are some students that know they have a particular interest. You can't stop them from following that particular area, and they could reach out maybe with specialists to do that stuff. Yeah. And then for people that don't know, yeah, I would say what Janelle said, just try something out. You know, in my particular case, you know, I mentioned those summer experiences. You know, even for example, I thought I was more interested in mechanical engineering when I started. I don't even remember how I ended up in electrical engineering, but there you go. Okay, so that's one thing. Even my field of study kind of shifted. I had a feeling that I liked physics and math, I think coming out of high school. So stuff centering around that I would have naturally gravitated to, maybe because, you know, there were certain mysteries around something. I was really fascinated with knowing how some of these things worked, or figuring out how they worked. So that was naturally drawn to that side of things. But my projects, you know, they were more on a higher level. For instance, you know, circuits, more computer systems, that kind of stuff, which I also just found challenging and interesting. So it was just exposure to other people's projects at the beginning for other profs, trying to satisfy the goals they wanted met, and in the process finding challenges that really interested me. And I have to say, you know, even my research interests have really kind of grown and changed over the years as well. So even the types of research that you know, I thought was, you know, the ultimate pursuit, you know, the most profound things that a mind could apply itself to. I don't really think that anymore about those things. And certainly with that kind of realization, I don't think that about the stuff I'm doing now, although I find it much more interesting than the stuff I would have found interesting years ago. So it's about, I think, exploring and keeping an open mind. And yeah, sometimes knowing, yeah, this isn't for me, and leaving. I've had students that do that too. They were excited about a project, they joined by lab, and within a few months, they, for whatever reason, you know, I didn't ask, they figured that the area wasn't for them, and that's fine as well. So it's your own personal journey.
Awesome. And maybe you can talk about how you ended up doing research under Professor Allison.
Yes. Okay, so mine was a bit weird. So it was during my COVID period when it started last year summer, and I was trying to be more active on campus. So my plan was, when second year starts, I started doing everything, and COVID hit, and I was stuck at home. Then I was checking the experience at your website for like jobs on campus and internships and stuff. Then I found research at the lab, and the name like stuck out to me. I saw virtual reality, and that was like, because I remember the first thing that came to mind was, I don't know if you guys know the movie Ready Player One. So I saw that and I was like, yeah, that could be me. And more than everything. So I applied, submitted my resume and all the other documents and stuff. And I got an email and an interview. So he's a really cool talk. I should say and yeah, now I'm here. I've been there for a year now, as I said earlier, and I've seen people come and go from the lab, and everyone I've worked with, like, they're really cool people. So that was how I found my way to research that.
Awesome. So I'll give a quick answer for me. Personally, I knew that I had an interest in entrepreneurship and a lot of aspects of software when coming to Lassonde. And I knew I did kind of know what I want. But the way I ended up getting involved in research was because I would say maybe similar to other people is I developed a relationship with the professor. And I was already talking about the aspects of their research with them, and they asked me to help them and to join as a research assistant. And that's personally how I got involved. And I think it came from knowing, you know, one of my areas of interest and talking to the professors in that area. And as well, if I'm sure that there are lots of other professors I know within the EECS department who I've developed good relationships with, if I wasn't doing research with Professor Maxwell, I would have hopefully worked with them. I think, when you're in university, it's a good chance to do research, and an internship or co-ops, and, see what you like about both of them. And maybe going into what I want to do in the future. Luckily, I had an internship this year at a high-tech company, which is a cryptocurrency exchange. And it's, a platform I even used when I was in high school. And after working for them this summer, they offered me to work full-time after I graduate. So I guess that's what I'm going to be doing in the future. But beyond that, my interest of entrepreneurship and really what I did research in is a big part of what I want to do in the future. And so I definitely hope my future will also have, founding a high-tech startup that will grow and have a level of success. And I think, both the aspects of, research, both in academia, but also providing you knowledge on some, level of cutting edge knowledge in that area, really, that you can take with you to the private sector, be it founding your own startup company or working at a company which is looking to do research. There's so many out there, like, auto manufacturers looking for autonomous vehicles and electric cars for, electrical and software engineers. And, a lot of people who are doing research as undergrads, are very attractive to those companies. Because they have a level of knowledge that is above their coursework. And so we'll pull up a question from chat right now from Ariane or Ari. What is your recommended book? Do you have a recommended book, Janelle?
That's okay.
I can answer while Janelle thinks and everyone thinks, and Sebastian will think of his favorite textbook. But personally, for me, I would say that one big benefit would be one big book that benefited me was 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And although it's not directly related to a technical aspect, I've been able to apply a lot to the work that I do in research and, my internships, and also, in my general schoolwork and life. And I think that for me personally, those self-help books really will teach you the skills to succeed in the areas that you want beyond just learning new facts about what you like and new systems. You're going to learn how to better solve problems and better do your work. So 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is definitely my recommendation to other people. Does anyone have a book that comes to mind, be it technical, non-technical, fiction, non-fiction? Janelle?
I'm still trying to think about it. But
Yeah.
anyone, go ahead and speak.
Yeah, Sebastian?
Gosh, I forget these things so quickly. If there's anything with a lasting impact, I mean, I liked, there's a series of books on history that were quite very interesting to me because they just kind of showed the transience of things. There was, a very brief history of a particular period, and then a map of what things looked like. And I would say those books, they were written. There was a fun way of presenting history and seeing how things change. So I'd say, as a perspective, that had a bit of an impact on me, maybe more than I realized until this moment. But a book that I'm reading now that I would recommend, that I think is pretty good, again, and in that sphere, is called Work. It's a book by James Suzman. I think it just came out last year. And it's an interesting perspective, as the subtitle is A History of What We Do. And you might find it quite interesting about our relationship to work, because whether you're studying or pursuing your own creative mission, you're working.
Yeah, do you folks have maybe books? Definitely James Stewart, Early Transcendentals Calculus. I'm sure will become a recommended book for everyone this year, as they are entering into Lassonde and everyone has to take the Calc 1 and 2 classes. Any other books? No?
I can try.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so one book that comes to mind is it's a fantasy, it's a fictional fantasy. It's called Children of Blood and Bone. It's a very interesting book. It's by Tommy Adeyemi. She's the first thing that I liked about her was the fact that she's like Nigerian, and it was like a really good book. I'm Nigerian as well, so that helps with it. And so, if you guys know who Toby Lou is, it's his sister. If you don't worry about it. I'm coming for you. It's his sister, and like he's like an artist and everything. So that was really cool. It's a really nice book. It takes like Nigerian culture and tries to merge it with the uh, general fantasy like genre, and then joins it with like the way Nigeria's map is, uses different tribal names and stuff. So that was my description. Probably doesn't do it justice, but yeah, that's the general idea. Check out Abby and Discord.
Awesome. So we have a couple more questions left. So next up, and we'll start with you, Janelle. What's one thing you wish you could tell yourself as you were entering your first year of studies? If you could go back and tell yourself anything beyond like lottery numbers.
I would definitely. I didn't start getting involved to Lassonde, so in terms of like competition or clubs until my third year. So I wish I told myself to get more involved because it led to amazing opportunities. For example, I ended up being a president of a club last year. A club that I learned about in my third year. It was called Engineers Without Borders, and that's where I learned about my passions with regards to environmental and SDG, so the UN SDG goals. And I want to incorporate that into my future endeavors, as well as I did my first competition with regards to, I guess, the engineering society at Lassonde. I entered my first competition with Alan and a couple of friends, and we ended up moving all the way to the Canadian competition where we competed against other universities across Canada. So I wish I got more involved because I've never realized I had the potential to do all of this because I was always a little bit scared on trying new things. But after I did, I was so grateful that I decided to dip my foot into all these opportunities because I had a great time and I learned many things. I networked, I learned many skills, and I'm doing events like this today. So
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good answer. Yeah, we ended up representing Ontario at the national level after placing in the Ontario level competition. So that was definitely a good experience to go to the Canadian engineering competition. And although we should have came first, we still placed. Taking home a medal for York, and so we're very happy about that. Personally, one thing I wish I could tell myself in my first year would be to maybe take things a bit slower from the start. And I think maybe a lot of engineering students can relate with this, and maybe Sebastian's a bit envious that we have a lot of flexibility at Lassonde. You can do your degree in 4 years if you really want to learn things and take, over 10 courses a year. But you also have the chance to take things a bit slower. And so for my first 2 years, I was taking the standard course load, of like 11 courses and then 13 courses. And after doing that, I realized it's not really sustainable. And if you really want to learn from your classes, our classes are really expensive. It's sometimes better to take less classes because you'll take more out of it if you're not trying to cram knowledge and cram past exams. And sometimes I think it's a bit of a shame that the school gives us a 4-year timeline or a 5-year timeline with, to do this because, especially the fundamentals of the first year really do matter. And, it's very worth it to take a look and say, if you have the time in your life, if you're willing to, spare a few years, to take a bit longer, use the extra time you have to get involved in research, to get involved with clubs, to work, some job at the time, and enjoy the social aspects of university, because in 4 years and even 6 years is a really short time. And, you should really consider, if you want to get the most out of it, to take the same amount of time, right? You're charged per course, not per year. So it's going to be the same amount of money anyways. The only question is, You know, how much time are you willing to how much time do you want to accelerate it? And sometimes when you accelerate it, you get despite having good grades, you learn less in the course because it leaves your brain immediately after the exam versus staying with you and sticking with you. And I think it's something very important to consider, especially in the upper years when your courses are very important to industry and to research and are much more dense in the level of technical aspects, to slow it down so you can really get the most out of it, not just, you know, to get better marks, but so you can carry it with you your whole life. Farouk?
I would tell myself to learn how to speak stuff because my sleep schedule is in myself. It was messed up even before COVID started. I'd be up till 12 a.m. or 2, 5 sometimes, and I'd have 8 a.m. classes. Not because of studying, because I'm looking at things. So I would tell myself to work on that. Like, you know, just take a, don't do that. So it may not be the best, especially for your classes and studying and stuff. And I never missed classes, so that was also fun because I would rush like my morning and stuff, and I would rush out of class, rush 2 classes, but even online classes. So I tell myself to try to come up with those good habits. Try to go to bed, like, even if it's like at the right time, just so you can wake up at the right time. Take, take your days nice and don't drink coffee every morning. Get addicted and all that good stuff. So yeah, that's it.
Cool. Definitely, I think self-care is something important that I think everyone wishes they knew better, especially in their years of university. Sebastian looks like a person who pulled some all-nighters studying. So maybe you can share what the wisdom that you've learned over, you know, the last X decades to that you would wish to impart on a younger version of yourself, be it general advice or, you know, even wisdom specifically for you, and, you know, what could have given you greater success.
Well, I mean, I think, guys, the stuff that you said is really excellent. The three of you guys, I think it's really good advice. I don't really have. Those are exactly the kinds of things I think I should be saying to myself in first year. You know, if maybe just to add one thing, but I really think it's of a kind, really, of what you guys said too, and that is, you know, as far as pacing, getting involved, taking care of yourself health-wise, and trying to manage yourself. And that is, you know, don't, if you tend to do that, do not try to avoid comparing yourself to other people. You know, it's great to be clever, but it's not the most important thing by a long shot. Those around you and yourself, these are the most important things.
Awesome. Definitely work smart and not hard. So feel free to put questions in the chat if you folks have. I'm going to pull up a question here right now. And I don't know if you can answer, Sebastian, or maybe one of us in software can. But what do people maybe research in CS? And a follow-up to that, I think, is, are you improving existing technology or creating new technology? I know that maybe you're a bit disconnected from that aspect of our department, so we're happy to answer. But you are our faculty member here.
Right. So it's for CS specifically, hey? Let's see. So
And software, I think they, you know, overlap quite a bit.
Right. So the software people, you know, I've spoken to, they, for instance, look at even ways of finding bugs quickly and automatically. So bug detection, even things like, I think, documentation so people understand what the software is, that kind of stuff. Alan, you probably know better than me on the software side. It's, you know, on the CS side, I think people also, a big one more on the theoretical side, when you have many things working at the same time on one general thing, how are you going to make sure that they come to some kind of a consistent, correct solution? So you want to throw many things at a problem to get that thing done quickly, but you also want them to solve that thing correctly. And that, when you have many different machines working on something at the same time, I think that's extremely hard to do. Or there's perhaps many ways of making it work very well. So there's, I think, some examples that come to mind right now. Alan, if you want to take over, maybe I'll think of other things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, a lot of professors at Lassonde look at, you know, mission critical systems in that sense. How can you mathematically, in computer science terms, prove that something's going to work? And that includes, concurrent systems. And, a lot of what we do on the internet today involves, servers dealing with concurrent requests and processing things together. So how can you prove those systems aren't going to break, or how can you detect those errors? And that's, I know what Frank is doing is a lot of error detection in that sense. And so that's more of the applied area of the theory. But we have so much research that's being done, both new research that's like, I would say there's a lot of research already done in how can we detect bugs in software, but using things like machine learning, or even using machine learning, and like you said, to get from like requirements documents what's being done. But a lot of things are developing new technology rather than building, I would say, old ones. But I think everything you'll find builds on old principles, right? And so what my professor who is supervising my capstone is a computer science professor, Manos Papagelis, and he is a professor studying, data systems and databases and graph theory and graph networking. And so a lot of what, he does is more innovative on those aspects of, how can we utilize graph theory, a more mathematical concept into our computer systems? How can we apply it, and what are the applications of these? And so my capstone really revolves around these big data systems and graph networks. And so I've been going to be working with Monos on that and creating new technology from there. But I would say, a lot of our professors do a lot of things. I know one thing we do at York, which is really special, and one of the things that is our biggest things is our vision research. And I know Farouk worked with Professor Robert Allison, who is a big part of the vision research at York that spans multiple faculties. So maybe you want to talk about the work being done there.
Okay, so currently, we're working on like trust management. So it's something that it's been discussed like theoretically lots of times about how can we manage the trust the human being has in the system and possibly the system has in the person. So say like sometimes we've seen, so one thing I can say is that with say like a Tesla, for example, you can leave the Tesla on autopilot, but like how can we make sure that the human is always aware of what's going on? Unlike rare cases where you have people sleeping in their Teslas. I think that's weird, but I don't know. People still do it. But how can you keep them aware? How can you make sure that the system is able to trust the person to not do things that would lead to accidents or other negative realities or actions? How can you make sure that the person is able to put their trust in the big hunk of metal that's driving how many miles per hour? Even like to normal apps on your computer. But mainly we're focusing on like maritime autonomous ships, which are basically ships that go without like people on board, or that's where they're trying to go with it. And we're trying to see like how the shipyards can put their trust in a big cargo ship that's transporting goods, but they might be on shore and controlling the ship from shore with no one on the ship. And how can they be able to trust that the ship won't crash into a wave, go by and sink, and also navigate properly and not crash into like ice or like different like variables like that. So yes, that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, so I'd say, tons of research being done. And I think, any new technology that's being developed is built on existing principles and, math and even previous technology. And I think that's very special to, the fields of STEM, especially, computer science and engineering. And maybe quickly, if you want to answer Janelle about what the work in civil engineering does, how much of it is new technology, new theory, and how much is, improving existing theories that are out there.
For sure. Like Alan said, it is based off of the key existing principles that you learn in, for example, first year and second year, and it all develops from there. For example, transportation system. You have the basic like highways and stuff, but with regards to autonomous vehicles, that is based off of your previous knowledge about how cars work and how that impacts human behavior. Also with regards to autonomous vehicles, how willing are people going to change their mode of transportation from a regular like manual car to a car where they trust the technology. It is based on human behavior. You have to test on stuff like that. So it is dependent on the pre-existing technical skills that you learn and the principles with regards to that. But it is always developing because engineering as a whole is a very huge like the whole, what is the word I'm looking for? Field, yes, that's the word I'm looking for. It's a whole field that is always developing with regards to technology, human behavior, and everything with regards to that. So I hope that answers your question.
Awesome. We have another question, and yeah, I think this is something a lot of people are wondering in first year, but how do you exactly apply for a research position? So I think we've talked about how can you find professors to work with, but maybe what's the process for actually getting LURA, USRA, RAY, or contract position?
Yeah, so specifically for the summer, Lassonde has research positions available in the summer term, so from May to August, and that usually comes out, like the application process comes out, I believe either in March or April, around there. You'll get an email about it from Lassonde saying, hey, we have positions open, please check out the professors. I believe we might have sent the link already, but we can definitely send it again. So on that page, you have a list of professors and their research and what professors are looking for a specific student or multiple students for a project. And then from there, you could, I think it is required to reach out to the professor, have a discussion with them, see how you can work with them for the summer, how the application process will go. But that's specifically for the summer. If you're looking for like a RAY position throughout the throughout the fall and winter term, that I believe is posted on the YorkU website. Yes. So you have to look on there to find research positions, or you can talk to a professor. They can create a research position for you, and then they can make the link directly for you to apply.
Yeah, personally, like in my case, in getting involved in research, the professor, yeah, I've had this happen with a number of my friends. But once you develop a relationship with the professor, they will create a position through RAY or through a contract with their own funding for you. But definitely for the summer, make sure to check out the LURA and USRA positions. And beyond that, a lot of those positions can help you over time. So if there's any other questions, put them in the chat. We went through all the questions on our list, and we hope you folks have been learning a lot about what research at Lassonde is, research in general, how it's going to impact your future, and hopefully we convince you all that it's something to definitely do. I know everyone here has lots of friends that have done it. I think it's a great part of the university experience. And even just having the experience to work on a team will provide a lot. So if there's no other questions, then Janelle?
We will give a big thanks to Sebastian for coming out and speaking with us today.
Thanks, guys.
As well as Farouk, a student panelist, Alan, a student panelist, and myself, a student panelist, researcher. So.
Yeah, and if you folks ever want to go back through this, the link to the recorded session will be on our Discord.
We're not recording this session just because maybe we might have talked about proprietary information, but we will be having other sessions like this week.
Later in the week.
We'll be having 2 more sessions, so make sure you check out those if you want to hear from other professors and other student panelists.
Yeah, so make sure to check those out for other chances to hear from students and professors. But I think that's it. So we're going to end the stream here. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.